Two-Face here, back with another reaction video. This time I'm reacting to Napoleon 1813 Road to Leipzig. Now, as I said numerous times, I'm playing catch up, and I think it's like another 2 or 3 videos until this series is done, and I will be reacting to different kinds of historical videos at the meet afterwards, but I haven't fully decided yet. So now, trying to think where we left off. Oh yeah, Napoleon's retreat from Moscow, which in the Russian winter, even though most of his army perished in the summer seasons, but many more, still many in the winter seasons, when Napoleon thought he was going to get a peace agreement with the Russian Tsar Alexander. But unfortunately, his army had to retreat from Moscow since it was set ablaze by Russian criminals, where the Russians rather burned Moscow to the ground as part of their scorched earth policy than let Napoleon keep one of their most sacred cities. But even though at the time Russia's capital was St. Petersburg, but Moscow still remained its spiritual heart, I think. And so Napoleon tried to go south through Kaluga, got blocked by the Russians, so they had to go through the main road, back on the main road between Moscow and Smolensk, and his army suffered terrible. To think that he started off with roughly over 600,000 soldiers, and that's not including the staff that helped cook the food for the soldiers, and the women and children that accompanied them, and the supply wagons. Again, because of the scorched earth, they couldn't live off the land. And then they had been attacked constantly by the Cossacks in different sections. Napoleon was almost captured, but so after that, Napoleon had a vial of poison made up just in case he got captured. And I think he retreated back to friendly territory with only 30-odd thousand troops left from 600,000. So basically, he lost 3/4 of his army in Russia. But just to hear how they froze to death, and some being stripped of every possession by the Cossacks and left to freeze, some handed over to peasants, which is probably a fate worse than death. But as I said, not too much rambling. Napoleon's trying to fix the political damage, and so this will be interesting, because I did hear that Napoleon did suffer in Russia a huge, massive defeat in Russia, so it's caused him to leave Moscow and try and retreat back to friendly territory in France. So the road to Leipzig. So let's see how this plays out. Oh, the link to the original video in the description down below. Please go subscribe to Epic History TV and History Marsh. And so this should be an interesting one. What a career Napoleon has ruined. Having gained so much glory, he could bestow peace on Europe. But he has not done so. The spell is broken. Emperor Alexander of Russia. Yeah, it was Alexandra. Oops.
1812 had been a disastrous year for Napoleon. His invasion of Russia had led to the almost total destruction of an army of 500,000 men.
Yeah, roughly 600,000.
Now Poland and Germany were wide open to Russian attack. Some advised Emperor Alexander that this was the time to make a favourable peace with Napoleon. Russia's own armies had been mauled and Western Russia devastated. But Alexander was determined to see Napoleon defeated for good, to free Europe from his clutches, and avenge Moscow's destruction by taking Paris.
Wow.
Napoleon's allies were deserting him. Russian troops.
Oh yeah, because what caused the fallout between Napoleon and Russia was the continental system creating the Duchy of Warsaw, which was a thorn in Russia's side. And I did ask in a previous video why the Russians had such hatred for Poland, and I don't know the history behind it, but during some of Russia's troubles, Poland took Moscow. So I'm not very clued up on that part of the history between Poland and Russia. So, but thank you to the person that let me know about why the Russians hated the Polish, but I'm not sure about the Prussians and Austrians, which were Napoleon's uneasy allies. But as the narrator just said, that Napoleon's allies are going to start deserting him.
Troops had already agreed a truce with the Russians. Schwarzenberg's corps marched back to Austria, which assumed a policy of watchful neutrality.
Wow.
Napoleon had left Marshal Murat in charge of the remnants of the army, but he left for the Kingdom of Naples, hoping to cut a deal with the Allies that would let him keep his throne.
I definitely did not know that.
He was replaced by Napoleon's stepson, Eugene, who'd proved himself a brave and able soldier in Russia, but was unused to independent command.
Oh dear.
And now faced odds of 4-1.
Yeah, that is a big difference.
As Russian forces advanced through Poland,
of course,
he
General
continued to
Kutuzov
retreat west, leaving garrisons to hold strategic fortresses, most of which were soon besieged.
Wow.
On the 7th of February, Russian troops entered Warsaw unopposed. Napoleon's Polish client state, the Duchy of Warsaw, effectively ceased to exist. 3 weeks later,
bearing in mind, Poland looked to Napoleon as their saviour to try and regain an independent Polish state. So, and bearing in mind also that there's also like Polish lancers, a part of his elite cavalry, part of the Guard cavalry, I think. I can't fully remember, but so that must have been one. That's definitely a critical blow to Napoleon. I know I'm being Captain Obvious, but still.
Russian troops entered Berlin, while Sweden joined the Allies.
Okay.
Sweden was ruled by Napoleon's former Marshal Bernadotte. Now,
of course, Bernadotte was the one that Napoleon fell out with the most. So, because Bernadotte was known for not obeying Napoleon's orders, and someone said that Bernadotte retreated when he was supposed to support Davout in defeating the Prussians, even though Davout done it himself. So, and Bernadotte was nearly court-martialed. So that is, I think he said it in the last year. There's a curious occurrence that Bernadotte was now the Crown Prince of Sweden. That, I bet not many people were expecting that.
Officially known as Crown Prince Karl Johann.
Disgrace at the Battle of Wagram.
Many would accuse him of betraying Napoleon, but he'd always been clear that once he became Sweden's Crown Prince, he'd pursue Swedish interests, which is what he now claimed to do.
Okay.
In exchange for Norway, to be taken from France's ally, Denmark, and £1 million from Britain, Bernadotte agreed to join what was now the 6th coalition against France since the Revolution, with an army of 30,000 troops.
Okay.
10 days later, King Frederick William of Prussia declared war on France. It followed weeks of indecision. The king was widely seen as a weak character and terrified of Napoleon,
which wouldn't have been seen as a
with
good thing in
guarantees
Prussia.
of Russian military support, the return of lost territory, and enormous financial and material aid from Britain.
Wow.
He agreed to field an army of 80,000 men. On the 17th of March, he issued a proclamation to the people of Prussia and Germany. "An mein Volk," to my people, summoning them to
I was
fight
about to say,
for
does that
Prussia
seem
and
my
Germany's
people in
honor
German? I'm not very
what would
clued up
soon
on
be
German,
known
the German
as
language.
the German War of Liberation. The Prussian army had been greatly reformed since its humiliating defeat to Napoleon in 1806. A military commission headed by General von Scharnhorst had sacked nearly 200 old generals and abolished flogging, expanded recruitment, and introduced exams for officers.
Okay.
And overhauled training, tactics, and drill. When Napoleon met the new Prussian army in battle 2 months later, he remarked, "These animals have learned something."
Animals, really?
Small consolation, they'd learned most of it from him.
I was about to say, that's most likely the case.
This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream.
Because if you think back, I think I remember seeing that after the Austrians were first beaten by Napoleon, they learned from Napoleon. They adopted the corps system, and they handed Napoleon's first defeat at Aspern, I think. And so I'm not surprised that the Prussians learned some new tactics and made great improvements thanks to their defeat of Napoleon, because sometimes defeat can be a really good teacher. So so everything's looking up for the Prussians at the moment, so it is interesting, because like I wonder if Blucher is going to get mentioned. Oh, hang on, I got an ad coming. Sorry, I got an ad. Oh, these ads again. Right. It'll be interesting to see how well the new Prussian army is. Only a short time ago, I was conqueror of the world, commanding the largest and finest army in modern times. Now it's all gone now. Oh yes, it's now going badly for Napoleon.
As his enemies massed in Germany, Napoleon was in Paris, working tirelessly to build a new army with which to face them. 137,000 new conscripts joined the army.
Not the best.
Passed to call up 100,000
which are probably the worst trained.
40,000 veterans from the army in Spain, 16,000 Marines, and 80,000 men of the National Guard, a home defense force, were transferred to Germany. The new conscripts were nicknamed Marie-Louises, after Napoleon's young wife, who passed the new conscription laws in his absence.
Yeah, people gotta remember that conscripts are not the best trained soldiers, but they do help make up the numbers. As I said, I'm not a military expert. I'm just going on what I remember learning years ago, learning from my history lessons, and yeah, not the best soldiers, but good for padding your armies out.
They were young and raw. 2/3 were teenagers.
Wow.
And there was a severe lack of experienced officers and NCOs. In short, the countless irreplaceable veterans now lying beneath Russian soil.
Yeah, that is a problem.
There was also a critical shortage of cavalry, a crisis mocked by British satirists.
Of course.
It would take Napoleon longer to replace the many thousands of horses and trained horsemen who perished in Russia. When Napoleon left Paris for Germany in mid-April, the French situation was precarious. Eugene had been forced back behind the river Elbe to the fortified city of Magdeburg. Dresden, the capital of Saxony, had fallen to the Prussians. The Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin became the first German state to defect from Napoleon's Confederation of the Rhine.
Wow.
Russian Cossacks raided as far as Hamburg, inspiring local revolts against French occupying forces.
Good tactic.
Meanwhile,
if it works.
Austria stood on the sidelines, so far declining to back either side.
Wow.
Napoleon's miraculous feat of organization meant he now had more than 200,000 troops in Germany.
To think that's impressive, like Napoleon to get that many troops when the enemies just had to reorganize. Napoleon had to build another army from the ground up. Doesn't matter if you like him or hate him, that's still an impressive feat.
And the Emperor's personal magnetism was undimmed. The morale of his army was high. The Russians, on the other hand, lost their iconic commander, Field Marshal Kutuzov, to pneumonia on the 28th of April. His role was taken over by General Wittgenstein. Russian troops were exhausted, far from home. Their army weakened by the need to contain French garrisons across Poland and Germany.
Yeah, that's wasted manpower.
Prussia and Sweden had yet to fully mobilize their strength, and Allied forces barely mustered 100,000 men.
Oh,
They were now heavily outnumbered by Napoleon, and the French Emperor decided to strike quickly. He ordered Marshal Davout to Hamburg with 35,000 men to secure his northern flank.
Wow.
He would march against the Russian and Prussian forces converging on Leipzig to force a decisive battle. Victory would make Austria think twice about joining the Allies. Allow him to rescue the 90,000 men trapped in garrisons across Germany and Poland, and re-establish his dominance over Europe.
If the art of war was the only art of not taking risks, glory would belong to the mediocrities. We need a full triumph. Hang on, another ad. Sorry about this, folks. Okay.
Play War Thunder now. Join
again.
Players across the globe in massive battles on tanks, aircrafts, and helicopters.
Right.
As Napoleon advanced on Leipzig, the Allies faced a predicament.
Okay.
To risk battle against Napoleon's larger army, or give up Germany without a fight. A potentially...
Well, bearing in mind, it's not just the size of Napoleon's army. You got to remember, Napoleon is... And I know I'm British English. I know I'm an Englishman, but I'm not too stubborn to admit that Napoleon is a military genius. So it's not just the size of the army that the Allies have to face. It's when Napoleon takes personal command. That's the other thing. I know that was me being Captain Obvious again.
A devastating blow to Allied morale and any chance of winning Austria over to their cause.
Yeah, that's a no.
Allied headquarters made the bold decision to attack.
Wow.
They knew most of Napoleon's army was made up of raw conscripts.
Good point.
Their own troops were better trained and had a great superiority in cavalry and artillery.
Yeah.
The Allies agreed that as Napoleon crossed the Saale River, they would hit his right flank before he could concentrate the full mass of his forces. The two armies were on a collision course, but Napoleon's shortage of cavalry meant he lacked information about Allied movements.
Oh, of course, he can't scout without cavalry.
On the 1st of May, Marshal Bessières, commanding the cavalry in Murat's absence, was carrying out reconnaissance himself when he was hit by a cannonball and killed instantly.
That's grim.
Bessières was the second of Napoleon's marshals to be killed in action, and like Lannes, an old comrade and trusted friend. The Allies were able to surprise Napoleon, falling on Marshal Ney's Third Corps near.
How often do you hear that? So an army managed to surprise Napoleon. But then I don't know why I said that, because without Napoleon's forces without cavalry doesn't have the best options to scout.
Lutzen.
That was weird how I said that.
Cling on in the face of a Russian and Prussian onslaught, while Napoleon rapidly redirected his other corps. to fall on the enemy's flanks. At one stage, Napoleon had to personally help rally routing troops as they broke in the face of determined Prussian assaults. But on the whole, his young conscripts...
That's... You know when it's desperate when Napoleon has to personally ride to the front lines to command his... to, you know, inspire routing troops. But also, with the many conscripts in Napoleon's army going against the new Prussian army, which is full of, I'm guessing, mostly veteran, like, experienced soldiers, and learning new tactics made them even more difficult to defeat. But we'll see.
Fought with courage.
Ideal.
Despite hours of savage fighting, Wittgenstein could not exploit his early advantage.
Oh.
As French reinforcements arrived, the battle turned against him.
Wow.
Towards dusk, the Allies were forced to break off the engagement, though they'd inflicted around 22,000 casualties, losing just half as many men. General von Scharnhorst, mortally wounded, was among them.
Wow.
Crucially, Napoleon's lack of cavalry meant he was unable to pursue the enemy, who retreated in good order. Expecting the Prussians to fall back on Berlin, Napoleon sent Marshal Ney in pursuit, while he continued east. But the Allied army stayed together, withdrawing to a defensive position at Bautzen, deliberately close to the Austrian border, hoping to entice Schwarzenberg to intervene, and daring Napoleon to violate Austrian neutrality. Neither happened. Instead, Napoleon ordered Ney to swing south to fall on the Allies' northern flank, while he launched a frontal assault to pin them in place. The battle lasted 2 days, as French infantry struggled forward against the Prussian and Russian lines.
Wow.
But a misunderstanding over Ney's orders caused a delay that allowed the Allies to narrowly escape Napoleon's trap.
Wow.
Once more, the Allies fought with great determination and inflicted many more losses than they suffered.
Wow.
There were more casualties during the pursuit, including the next day General Duroc, Grand Marshal of the Palace, responsible for Napoleon's personal arrangements, and his closest surviving friend. Riding with Napoleon's staff, a freak cannon shot ricocheted off a tree and disemboweled him.
Oh.
His slow, painful death
that's
deeply upset Napoleon.
That is, I was about to say, that's such an agonizing
The Emperor
death.
continued his pursuit to Breslau, once again hindered by his lack of experienced cavalry, while Oudinot was sent north to take Berlin, but was held at Luckau by von Bülow's Prussian corps.
Wow.
On the 2nd of June, with both sides strained to breaking point, neutral Austria proposed a ceasefire, which, to the surprise of many, Napoleon accepted.
Okay. That is a surprise. My eagles are again victorious, but my star is setting. Wow.
The Armistice of Plasmids would last more than 2 months, a period of intense diplomacy and military mobilization by both sides. Napoleon wanted time to rebuild his cavalry, a shortage of which had allowed the Allies to escape twice. But he also wanted to keep Austria on side, which he feared might join the Allies with 200,000 troops.
Wow,
even though Emperor Francis I was now his father-in-law.
Of course,
since
Napoleon's
marriage to his daughter, Marie-Louise, in 1810.
Oh, that's a
Austrian Foreign Minister Clemens von Metternich, who'd become one of 19th century Europe's most influential statesmen, now took center stage. Metternich wanted peace and to see Austria restored as a great European power, which meant Napoleon contained, but not crushed, which would hand too much power to Russia. In June, he travelled to Dresden to ask Napoleon to make concessions, while promising the Allies that if he did not, Austria would join them.
That'll be one hell of a predicament.
But Napoleon dismissed Metternich's terms out of hand. He would not return the Illyrian provinces to Austria, agree to the repartition of Poland, or the breakup of the Confederation of the Rhine. All
Which is a
were
buffer
out of the
zone.
question. Napoleon famously threw his hat to the ground in fury. Peace and war lie in your Majesty's hands, Metternich is said to have warned him. Today you can still make peace. Tomorrow it may be too late.
I bet Napoleon wants war.
But Napoleon preferred war
Yeah, I
to
thought
what
so.
he called a humiliating peace.
That means the Austrians are definitely helping the Allies out this time. To think Austria can now help reinforce the Allies with roughly 200,000 soldiers. So that is a great help to the Allies, for Austria to be on the Allies' side. Expect a defeat whenever the Emperor attacks in person.
On the 12th of August,
Hang on.
1813.
Sorry. Attack and defeat his lieutenants wherever you can. Okay. Sounds like an ideal plan.
On the 12th of August, 1813, Austria joined the Sixth Coalition and declared war on France. The Allies now had a numerical advantage of 3-2.
Wow.
And a new strategy, the Trachenberg Plan. Recognizing Napoleon's genius, the Allies would avoid battle with the Emperor and instead target his marshals, threaten his flanks, and wear down French forces
Took the words out of my
until it
mouth.
was time to close in for the kill.
It's a
Over
great
the
idea.
next few months, the coalition would also receive massive material support from Britain,
Oh, well,
including
what has Britain...
£8 million in silver and gold coin,
Okay.
200 cannon with transport, 120,000 firearms, 18 million rounds of ammunition, 23,000 barrels of gunpowder, 30,000 swords and sabres,
Wow.
150,000 uniforms, 175,000 pairs of boots, 1.5 million pounds of beef, biscuit and flour, and 28,000 gallons
The most
of rum
important
and
part.
brandy. The total value of British aid to the coalition in 18...
Sorry, just go up the list again. £8 million. Wow, I'm surprised. Britain at the time could afford that much, but then of course the British Empire could afford such things. But imagine trying to transport all this right across Europe. So no wonder why we were so popular in Europe. Bearing in mind that there's a British army still fighting the Peninsula War with the Spanish and Portuguese, so kind of surprising that Britain at the time could afford such expenses, but then the help could have come from the colonies that Britain had at the time. So
beef, biscuit and flour. And 28,000
as I said, that's the most
gallons of
important part
rum
down
and
here.
brandy. The total value of British aid to the coalition in 1813 was £11.3 million.
Wow.
Today, worth around $500 million.
Jeez.
Napoleon, meanwhile, had turned
No wonder why the EU thinks we're rich. Nope, just kidding.
Dresden into a major supply depot and strengthened his cavalry arm, though it remained a pale shadow of its glorious past.
Yeah, very hard to replace.
Murat returned to lead it, his secret
Wow.
approach to the Allies having been rebuffed. But when news arrived of King Joseph's disastrous defeat to Wellington's
Yeah, the Peninsula War.
Spanish-Portuguese army at the Battle of Victoria, Napoleon had to send Marshal Soult, one of his best commanders, to salvage the situation. On the 15th of August, Napoleon left Dresden and advanced against what he considered the most urgent threat, the joint Prussian-Russian army of Silesia, commanded by General Gebhard von Blücher, soon to win the nickname Marshal Vorwärts, Marshal Forwards, for his aggressive leadership.
I heard he was an aggressive commander.
But Blücher followed the new plan and retreated when he learned of Napoleon's advance.
Okay.
Napoleon then received news from Marshal Saint-Cyr, holding Dresden with
Schwarzenberg.
20,000 men, that Schwarzenberg's gigantic army of Bohemia was approaching, and the city and its supplies were in danger. Napoleon left Marshal MacDonald to keep an eye on Blücher, and raced back to Dresden, sending Van Damme's First Corps to threaten Schwarzenberg's communications. By the time the Allied assault began, enough reinforcements had arrived to fight off the attack. The next day, despite being heavily outnumbered, Napoleon ordered a counterattack.
Schwarzenberg ignored the plan.
Struggling through mud and heavy rain, Marshal Murat's advance, supported by Victor's Second Corps, broke the Allied left flank and took 13,000 prisoners. The Allies had suffered a...
Looks like Schwarzenberg ignored the Trachenberg plan. Do not take on Napoleon when he is present. Only target his army when it's just his marshals.
disastrous defeat because they'd ignored their own rule. Don't take on Napoleon in battle.
Yeah. Only target his
But
marshals.
news soon arrived that turned the situation on its head. Marshal Oudinot had resumed his advance on Berlin with 66,000 men. But in 3 days of heavy combat around Grossbeeren, he was defeated by Bernadotte's Army of the North. Some of the most savage fighting was between Napoleon's Saxon allies and von Bülow's Prussians, two German states that for now remained on opposing sides. 3 days later, at the Katzbach River, Blücher inflicted a crushing defeat on Marshal MacDonald, driving some French troops into the river itself.
Wow.
MacDonald lost 30,000 men, 3 eagles and 100 guns, for Blücher's 22,000 casualties. 3 days after Napoleon's victory at Dresden, as Van Damme's corps pursued the Allies, it became trapped in wooded valleys around Kulm and was overrun. General Van Damme himself was dragged from his horse by Cossacks, as he and 10,000 of his men were made prisoner.
Wow.
Napoleon sent Ney to take over from Oudinot, who engaged Bülow's Prussian corps at Dennewitz. The Prussians, fighting to save Berlin, held their own until Russian and Swedish reinforcements arrived to turn the battle decisively in the Allies' favor. Ney's retreat became a rout, with the loss of another 22,000 men.
Jeez.
Napoleon's brilliant victory at Dresden had been completely overturned in just 10 days.
Wow.
The Allied plan was working.
Yep.
Napoleon became increasingly frustrated as Allied
It's gotta
armies
take a toll on
withdrew
his army as
wherever he
well.
advanced, and advanced wherever he was not. His teenage conscripts were exhausted by constant marching, and famished as Saxony had been stripped bare of supplies. Thousands fell sick, thousands more deserted. Russian and Prussian light troops were now operating behind Napoleon's army,
Wow, they made it that
harassing
far.
his communications with France. Many of Napoleon's marshals advised him to pull back to the River Rhine. But Napoleon wasn't giving up Germany without a fight.
There'll be inevitably a great battle at Leipzig. So this is where Leipzig comes in.
By October 1813, Napoleon faced 1/3 Allied troops in Germany, converging on him from 3 directions. 900 miles away, Field Marshal Wellington was crossing the Bidassoa River into France, the first enemy army on French soil in nearly 20 years. While the Kingdom of Bavaria...
Of course, the last time the British were on French soil was at Toulon, which is roughly here, I think. Or is it here? I can't remember. But yeah, so 20 years later, the British are now back on French soil, near enough. Obviously thanks to help from the Spanish and Portuguese, obviously. But of course, with the Royal Navy operating on the seas, France can't really find a way past it, and it made it impossible for the French to invade Britain itself, with the Royal Navy still ruling the seas.
A French ally since the days of Austerlitz,
are they going to turn?
Secretly agreed to switch sides and would declare war on France on the 14th of October.
That's got to be a kick in the teeth to Napoleon.
Napoleon planned to defend the line of the River Elbe. But the arrival of General Bennigsen's reserve Russian army freed up Blücher, who suddenly marched to join forces with Bernadotte and forced his way across the Elbe at Wartenberg. Napoleon went north with 150,000 men, seeking the decisive battle that would change his fortunes. But once more, Blücher narrowly escaped him.
Wow.
Then came news from Murat, who'd been left with 67,000 men to cover Schwarzenberg. The enemy had bypassed Dresden and was heading for Leipzig. If the city fell, Napoleon would be cut off from France. Once more, he was advised to fall back to the Rhine. But instead, Napoleon ordered all his forces to concentrate at Leipzig. He would risk everything in one great battle to decide the fate of his empire and the fate of Europe.
Really? An ad right now? Sorry about that. Come on. Right. Now I'll do it. This has been another interesting video. I'm sorry I didn't talk a lot. Obviously I was just trying to take in information as well, but it's interesting how much the Allied armies had improved in strategy, probably like Austria using Napoleon's core system, but the Trachenberg plan is quite good when you're recognizing Napoleon's genius and knowing that his marshals, yeah, they may be good, but they're not that good, if you know what I mean. But it's kind of interesting how well the Allies are getting on, and of course the material support from Britain also help the morale of the Allies as well. So anyway, this has been another interesting video from Epic History TV. If you like this reaction, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.